In a freezing St. Petersburg square, a young man stands before a firing squad. The soldiers raise their rifles. The order is given. But just as the shots are about to ring out, a horseman gallops in, waving a proclamation. A last-minute pardon from the Tsar himself. This wasn't a scene from a novel. This was the real-life experience of Fyodor Dostoevsky, the man who would descend into the darkest corners of the human heart and emerge with some of the greatest literature ever written. But what if I told you that this mock execution, this elaborate piece of political theatre, wasn't the most terrifying moment of his life? What if the real horror was something he carried within himself, a secret that shaped every word he ever wrote? Dostoevsky's life was a cascade of crises. Born in a charity hospital, his father a tyrannical doctor, his mother a gentle soul who died young. He was a man of intense contradictions, deeply religious, yet obsessed with sin. A passionate patriot, yet arrested for belonging to a group of radical thinkers. This arrest led to that fateful day in Semenovsky Square. The Tsar, Nicholas I, had orchestrated the entire spectacle to instill terror, and it worked. Dostoevsky and his fellow prisoners were sentenced to hard labor in Siberia instead. For 4 years, he lived chained among murderers and thieves, a world away from the literary salons of St. Petersburg. It was in this frozen hell that he truly began his education. Not in philosophy or art, but in the raw, unfiltered reality of the human soul. He saw acts of shocking cruelty and moments of unexpected kindness. He saw men who had committed unspeakable crimes, yet still prayed for redemption. This experience would become the crucible for his future work. It's where the seeds of crime and punishment and the Brothers Karamazov were sown. But the physical suffering of Siberia was only one part of his struggle. The other was an invisible battle, a war being waged inside his own mind. Many people know Dostoevsky was an epileptic. He called it his holy illness. His seizures were often preceded by moments of intense, almost divine ecstasy, a feeling of complete harmony with the universe. He described it as a moment where all the anxieties, all the doubts, all the worries were replaced by a higher calm, full of clear, harmonious joy and hope. But this ecstatic high was always followed by a devastating crash, days of confusion, depression and memory loss. This constant cycle of light and darkness, of spiritual bliss and mental agony, became a central metaphor in his writing. His characters are rarely ever just good or just evil. They are complex battlegrounds of conflicting impulses, just like him. Think of Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment, a man who believes he is a Superman above morality, yet is tormented by guilt after committing murder. Or the Karamazov brothers, each representing a different facet of human nature. The passionate Dmitri, the intellectual Ivan, and the spiritual Alyosha. Dostoevsky wasn't just writing characters, he was dissecting pieces of his own soul and laying them bare for the world to see. But there was another addiction, another demon that tormented him even more than his epilepsy, and it nearly destroyed him and his family completely. It was the siren song of the roulette wheel. Dostoevsky was a compulsive gambler. On his trips to Europe, he would lose everything: his money, his wife's jewelry, even her wedding ring. He would write desperate, begging letters to friends and family, promising he would never gamble again, only to fall back into the same destructive pattern. He wrote his classic novella, The Gambler, in a frantic 26-day sprint to pay off his gambling debts to a ruthless publisher. His wife, Anna, acted as his stenographer, and it was through this intense collaboration that their love truly blossomed. Anna wasn't just his wife, She was his savior. She took control of their finances, managed his publishing deals, and created a stable environment where he could finally write without the constant threat of creditors at the door. It was thanks to her that he was able to produce his greatest masterpieces, The Idiot, Demons, and the Brothers Karamazov. He had finally found some semblance of peace. He had faced down the firing squad, survived Siberia, and conquered his gambling addiction. But the secret he carried, the one that began long before all this, was still there, lurking in the shadows of his mind. To understand Dostoevsky, we have to go back to his childhood. His father, Mikhail, was a grim, suspicious, and often violent man. When Dostoevsky was just 18, his father was murdered. The official story was that he died of a stroke. But the family legend, the one that haunted Dostoevsky for his entire life, was that his father was murdered by his own serfs, the peasants who worked his land, as revenge for his cruelty. This event is believed to have triggered Dostoevsky's first epileptic seizure. The theme of parricide, the killing of a father, is a dark thread woven throughout his work. Most famously in the Brothers Karamazov, where the central plot revolves around the murder of the debauched patriarch Fyodor Karamazov. The question of who killed him and the shared guilt among his sons becomes a profound exploration of sin, free will, and redemption. Dostoevsky, the man who felt an immense, perhaps irrational guilt over his own father's death, spent his life wrestling with this question in his fiction. His characters are constantly debating the existence of God and the nature of morality. If God doesn't exist, Ivan Karamazov famously argues, then everything is permitted. This single idea is the philosophical time bomb at the heart of the 20th century, and Dostoevsky lit the fuse. So what was Dostoevsky's great secret? The one more terrifying than the firing squad, more torturous than Siberia. It wasn't his epilepsy or his gambling. It was his terrifyingly profound understanding of the darkness that lies within us all. He knew that the line between saint and sinner, between reason and madness, is razor thin. He understood that within the most ordinary person, there is the capacity for both transcendent love and monstrous evil. He wasn't just a novelist. He was a prophet who looked into the abyss of the modern soul and didn't flinch. He saw the nihilism, the existential dread, and the spiritual emptiness that would come to define the next century. But here's the final, startling twist. The man who wrote so unflinchingly about murder, suffering, and despair wasn't a pessimist. He believed in the power of love, faith, and forgiveness to redeem even the most fallen soul. His ultimate message is one of hope, that even in the deepest darkness, a single flicker of light can show the way. That is the enduring genius of Fyodor Dostoevsky. He descended into hell, not to map its horrors, but to find the path back to heaven. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the mind of a literary giant. If you're fascinated by the big ideas that shape our world, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We have a lot more to explore. Until next time, keep asking the big questions.